Weekends with Champions. Another beautiful Saturday, another amazing guest uh, who is right now not available on screen. I'm sure he'll be joining us any second now. Before he comes in, let me. Okay, there he is. Um, so we are stoked to have a very popular and very promising young programmer who has been, achieving amazing feats in his career so far. He's a ICPC World Finalist. He's currently employed with Google, but the best thing is that he's really enthusiastic about helping and providing all sorts of guidance to the aspiring programmers. So we are in luck today. We are stoked to have. We're excited to have him. We have a lot of questions for him. Please welcome Kunal Verma. Kunal, thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited and happy to have you here. How have you been today?
Thanks, Dipanjan. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. I'm having a good day. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for asking. People are already greeting you. They are. I'm sure they have their questions ready with them, but we have a lot of questions from the community already, especially given considering the flow of questions on our response sheet. It looks like you are one of the most popular, guests on WWC. Um, we I have a feeling that it's going to be a great episode. Kunal, before I go into all the technical questions and the things that are expected to be asked to you, I would like to know a little bit about yourself, about where you grew up and your childhood and early education.
Okay, so I'm from New Delhi.
Yeah,
I've spent most of my life here,
right,
and so I from my schooling I did from DPS Noida,
right,
mostly
right.
for about 10 years, and then went to DPS Indrapuram. So uh, that actually helped me a lot because
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
in particular in Delhi, the culture in DPS is very competitive, and we compete against each other a lot.
Right,
So a lot of the things that CodeChef is trying to do,
right.
that CodeChef is trying to introduce at the school level,
Mm-hmm.
that was existing in DPSs a long time ago in my
Okay.
in Delhi. So we were doing CP and stuff in at school level a long time back when I was in school and much back before me.
That's
So
interesting to learn. So you had a fair bit of understanding. So you learned a little bit of coding when you were in school.
I knew what CP was. I We had like CS courses in school, but that
Right,
wasn't in any way related to CP. I
right,
wasn't a competitive programmer in school at all. I never bothered to look into it.
right.
But I did learn coding in school. I did
Mhm.
learn C++ in 11th and 12th, like most
Right,
CBSE students
right,
do.
right.
But and before that, I used to program random things, but never really got into CP properly until college. But I was
Talking
aware of it.
awareness is, at least 30% of the battle. A lot of people are not aware of the existence of competitive programming. It's good to know that you had a little idea of it. Uh, Coming to coming to college, you were in BITS Pilani, Hyderabad,
Yeah,
right? How
yeah.
was the culture there, considering competitive programming or coding?
I was very lucky to join BITS Hyderabad at a very exciting time. So
Hmm.
back when I joined BITS Hyderabad, that was the period where BITS Hyderabad was gaining pace very rapidly in terms of CP culture, particularly.
Right.
Like so, my seniors who were 2 or 3 batches senior to me, they were the ones who started really doing CP seriously.
When was this? What year are we talking about?
I joined college in 2017, and about the 2014 batch or 2015 batch really started CP.
Right, right.
And we weren't doing anything at a national level at
Hmm.
that point of time, but we were getting better very fast. And
Right,
a college was like barely 10 years old when I joined
right, right, right,
college,
right.
so it was interesting. And since there was a lot of enthusiasm among those seniors to
Hmm.
get the college to that level that we compete with
Right.
the IITs in India and the triple IITs in India. So since the enthusiasm was there, so the support system was also very good. Like,
Mm.
so seniors were very eager to mentor people, and that got transpired within our
Right.
subsequent batch, in my batch, in subsequent
Right.
batches, and that is still going on, and it's always increasing at a very rapid rate. So I'm very excited and very happy with how Bits Hyderabad is doing right now.
So there was a really a thriving culture of
Yeah.
programming when you joined. So would you say that you guys were the pioneers of this culture in Bits Hyderabad?
Um, I like to think so. like, like the batches senior to me were definitely the
Hmm.
ones who started it all, and every other batch is taking more and more
Right.
ownership,
Right.
and it's very exciting.
Right. Since we are talking about you coming from a very reputed college which has a good infrastructure, I am getting to see a few questions regarding tier 3 colleges getting into Google. We may or may not take the questions right away, this question right away, but this is something that I would like to visit sometime later during this interview. A question by Jay Nitish. But let's
Okay.
let's talk about your let's come back to Bits again. Uh, who were the your contemporary coders or batchmates who are still into competitive programming or were participating in CP when you were to anybody you look up to or think is worth mentioning?
I've had the pleasure of interacting a lot of the CP community.
Right.
Like, even before I reached World Finals, we were talk. I was talking to many
Right.
of the very good coders of India.
Right.
Uh, so, like, so in my batch particularly, um, from my college, there's one guy called Kushagra Srivastav, and
Right.
we very good friends, and we basically started doing CP together. And I wanted to touch upon that somehow in this talk as well, is
Yeah.
that it's very good to have a buddy or a friendly competitor type of
Absolutely.
person when you're doing CP, because
Yes.
you tend to push each other
Mm.
when that happens, like someone who's on the same level as you in terms of the
Right.
passion and some knowledge as well, that
Right.
also helps. So yeah, I luckily had that person, and we pushed each other a lot, especially the first and second year,
Right.
and we improved each other a lot as well. So that's something that should be, at least in the early stages, that should be something
Right.
that I would recommend everyone else to
Yes,
do.
that is
And
something all
yeah,
all all competitive programmers who visit here and who are worth their salt. That is something they advise, that you should get a good friend, a good buddy, and eventually maybe a team partner where you can learn from. It's almost like mentoring each other. But did
yeah,
you have a mentor though when you were in your learning phase?
I do actually. Not like in the mentor in the sense that he would guide me every step of the way. But when I started CP, basically I knew about CP, but I never seriously thought into getting into it.
Right.
So but there was this one senior who called me for interaction on his room in
Right.
to his room in first year,
Right.
and he knew somehow that I was interested in like so my background is basically that I used to in high school in 11th and 12th I was very much into Olympiad mathematics.
Right.
So Olympiad mathematics, like the internet, like IOI, this for IMO is very similar to IOI in the
Hmm.
sense that uh, like you have a fixed time frame and you have some questions to solve, and they're pretty hard questions to solve.
Right. Right.
So, and you get scored somehow. So since I was coming from that environment, I found CP very attractive, and a lot of the credit goes to one senior that I from my college who was from the 2015 batch. His name
Hmm.
is Aditya Kumar.
Hmm.
um, so he invited me and Kushagra to his room in his first year, and that's how we started CP. He guided us a bit, and then we start, and consistently throughout, at least throughout my first year, whenever I was wondering like something, if I should do this or do that, should I go this, should I approach this way or that way, then I would just ask him once. But he encouraged doing things on your own way. That
Hmm.
was his main emphasis, and I think that's very very important as well, because it's not something that I don't believe that a single person can tell you how to do CP.
Right.
There's no roadmap
Right.
to
Right.
getting good at CP. You just need to, the only thing that works in my opinion CP is that you need to work a lot and you need to push a lot
Right.
consistently. Like you can't stay at the same level.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like you, with your merit, you made it into one of the hotbeds of CP culture, which is bits learning. And I can't help but, get into that question where tier three college students asking about how do they make a difference when their infrastructure is not as good. I know the answer to this is not simple. There is a whole roadmap that you will probably be talking about regarding this. But in just one or two lines, what would be your advice to people who are not a part of such a reputed college, perhaps?
So like yeah, you can reach out to, I think a lot of the CP community in general is very open to questions. They don't,
Mm,
they're always very, a lot of the good coders, they are very open to questions. They're
mm,
always eager to interact.
right,
And uh, so you can reach out to them if you have any questions, but what I would suggest is before, like, try to do things on your own.
right,
Just after you're done with the basics like learning a language and stuff, just
right,
start doing CP on your own, and like try to improve consistently. The most important thing that I would emphasize on is push yourself
right,
consistently. Don't do the same. If you can solve a uh, if you can solve the easiest problem in a contest, don't do the easiest problem in the contest. You should
right,
do about 1 or 2 levels above. You should
mm,
always practice 1 or 2 levels and practice a lot, obviously. That
right,
those are
right,
the two things. If you can do those things, then introspect what's going wrong, like, and don't introspect like after one contest. It's
right,
not because it's very random. The like the probability of you getting it can be very random, even if you
right,
perform very good or something like that. But it might just not be a day. But like fix a time frame like around 2 months, set a goal, and if in 2 months you're not seeing any progress, then think, where are you wrong, where are you going wrong, introspect a lot.
right.
That's
That's
the long
excellent.
term goal. But in the beginning, you should just, there are a lot of external resources I would say to start off CP with, but that just lasts about 4 or 5 months if you're doing them diligently.
Mhm.
After that, it's on your own, whatever
Right.
you do. Yeah.
That's excellent advice, guys. I hope you're taking notes, everyone who's watching. And anyone who has joined right now and is wondering what's happening, we have Kunal Verma, SDE at Google, ICPC World Finalist, and a CP enthusiast. Uh, he has joined us to give his pearls of wisdom on Weekends with Champions. And the people who are sending in their questions, I would advise you to hold your horses because we already have a lot of questions from the community, and we don't want to lose your questions in the moving scroll of the comment section. So let's just get back to the questions that we already have for you, Kunal. uh, Kunal, how long has your association with CodeChef been, and how has it been?
So after basically when I was done with JE Advanced and stuff,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I started thinking, okay, what next? Now
Yeah.
now I'm done with JE. I don't know what to do next. So that was actually the time when I knew about CP, as you know. So,
Right.
and CodeChef was one of those websites that I knew about. I knew about IOI as well,
Right.
but I was too late to IOI, I would say. So
Hmm.
I thought, okay, this might be something that I can do after when I'm done with JE. So I like visited CodeChef and started doing some very basic problems
Hmm.
on like just after JE, and ever since then I've been participating on and off for about
Right.
4 years. And CodeChef has always been very uh, like I've had a very positive relationship with CodeChef. I think I've mentored. I think I've taught for CodeChef for schools in my third year of college,
Right.
in second year of college, when in January 2019,
Hmm.
in the INI TC camp,
Hmm.
I think. Yeah. So my relationship with CodeChef has been very positive. I like that CodeChef is very enthusiastic about getting more Indians to the ICPC World Finals and getting
Right.
getting India to perform better at IOI. Yeah.
So Kunal missed the IOI, but then he decided to mentor the ones who are eligible for IOI as a with his association with Coach for Schools. But there are still people who are eligible for IOI, and it's happening in 2022. So I would advise you to, prepare for the zonal computing Olympiads, and then make your way to the Indian computing Olympiads, and maybe bring us a gold this time. But let's come back to Kunal's journey as a competitive programmer. A lot of people are asking if Kunal has started very early in his life. I think people are a little scared about starting too late in their lives. Uh, what do you have to say to them? Did you really start really early in your life? Also, the second part of the question would be: has CP in any way changed your life? If so, how?
So about starting when I practically started in first year,
Hmm.
and that was all due to my mentor. So first
Right.
year I think is a very good time to start CP.
Hmm.
Like if you can start anytime you can start as early as possible is good.
Right.
But first year particularly is a very good time to start CP in college, and it gives you ample time to if
Right.
you're aiming for somehow aiming for ICPC World Finals or something.
Right.
It gives you ample time to make mistakes and to come
Mm-hmm.
back again and like improve with your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that being said, I personally know a lot of people who started at the end of second year or started at middle of second year in my college itself, and they're doing fantastic right now.
Right.
Um, so it just depends on how much effort you're putting into it. If you're starting late, obviously there might be people who have started very early and have been doing consistently. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
looking to get better than them, you need to
Mm.
put extra effort at that point
Right.
of time. But
Right.
for if the question is that how late is too late for CP, CP is not going anywhere. If
Right.
you're just aiming to get good at CP, and like and you're not aiming to get anything out of it and just aiming
Mm.
to get good at it, there's no limit to the time you can do it even when you're doing a job or something. But
Mm.
if you if it's specific to ICPC or I say internships, I'll get to internships later in a future
Yeah.
question in the subsequent question. But in ICPC particularly, I think you need the average person who is very serious about it need some time to experience failures at ICPC because it's not easy to get through to the world finals in the first time if you're aiming for
Right.
that. Yeah, I
Okay.
had about to. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. About how CP has changed your life. Yes, that's important.
All right. It has changed me a lot. So this is something very personal is that after JE Advanced, when I couldn't get into the IITs that I wanted, that
Right.
was like at that point the only thing in my life that I was
Mm-hmm.
focused on.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds silly right now, but back then it was the only thing in my life. So I thought uh, I wanted something else to prove to myself, and that
Right.
was CP for me. Like
Right.
and yeah, I had a knack for it because of my early interest in Olympiads, and CP in a very vague way, it it taught me the skill to search for answers myself
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
learn myself.
Right.
I
Right.
think that's very very important in
It's
the
a major life
real
skill.
world. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a very major life skill. It teaches you how to Google things. That's one thing,
Right. Right.
and it teaches you how to teach yourself. That
Right.
that that's a very good reason why you should do CP. And obviously, it makes you a bit more intelligent compared to if you don't
Absolutely.
do it. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. I just need to take this question from the comment section because it looks like there's a little bit of urgency. This is Adil Goyal. He's a young CP enthusiast. He's in the eighth standard.
Okay.
He has a year of experience in programming, and he wants to prepare for ZCO. What would be your advice for Adil?
Um, first of all, you should like be very comfortable with the programming language. That's the baseline. Obviously,
Mm, mm,
I would say take it slow. You have a lot of time, first of all,
right,
because you're in eighth standard and you have a lot of time till 12th standard to get to improve a lot.
right, right.
But be consistent. Uh,
Mm,
so take it slow. Make your at every step. Make sure your whatever you're learning that is
mm, mm,
very strong.
right.
Um, so be comfortable with a programming language. One language that I would always advise people to use in CP, even
Right.
though it's the common trope that CP is independent of programming languages, but the fact is that the best support for CP is in C++.
Hmm.
So I would advise that you should get decent at C++ and then start participating in contests
Right.
and about learning things. So obviously there will be stuff where you haven't learned the math behind it. So
Hmm.
for a young programmer, I would say you have to balance both. You have to balance math and you have to balance computer your regular CP stuff as well. Otherwise, if you would have in college, I would have said that just go for CP and you don't
Right.
need to learn any extra math because that's generally built
Right.
on whatever you've learned in your 11th and 12th. But for eighth grade students, you need to
Right.
improve your math as well as along with this, and just start participating in contests.
Hmm.
Um, um, what I would say is that don't, and this is a general advice for when you're starting out, and since you're so small right now, just don't pay much attention to your rating right
Right.
now.
Right.
Just do things and try to focus on improving on a period of time rather than comparing yourself to someone else at
Absolutely.
this moment.
Yeah.
You can do that once you're comfortable with CP, but right now you shouldn't do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's very substantial advice. Uh, Kunal, when I was speaking with you, I have been speaking with you for a week now regarding this, and what one thing I learned is that you have an inherent passion for to help out anybody who is aspiring for competitive programming. What drives you to help out young programming aspirants?
It's basically because I was in the same place at
Right,
4 years back. I was in the same place as well. So,
right, right, right,
so you never know like who will take your advice very seriously and
hmm,
then turn out to be, because I've seen a lot of those examples in my college itself. Like
right,
people, just from just talking to someone very new and you don't know like what is their background. Some people take your advice somehow very seriously, and it's
right,
totally worth it. Like if even one person turns out to be very good in the
right.
future and they're able to overtake you, that's even better.
Hmm, hmm,
So
hmm.
and I've experienced that personally a lot. I've been very lucky to experience that with my college
Right,
juniors. They are doing very well, and I'm lucky that I was able to mentor them for the first few
right,
when they were starting out their journeys.
right.
Yeah,
I really find your philosophy very endearing and very inspiring. It kind of represents CodeChef in many ways. That's very refreshing, and I would like to appreciate you for that.
thank you.
Uh, and also, there are before I go on to the next question, what kind of problems have you faced in your initial years? I get that. I'm getting that question as well. So I just wanted to add on to the previous question. What were the problems, that the initial hiccups that you were facing?
So how this is a very popular story among my friends as well.
Hmm,
This is practically how I got serious about CP. I did
hmm,
start CP when I was in first year, but I wasn't very serious about it until like 3 or 4 months
hmm,
in.
hmm,
And there was a very good story about it. So in my college, there's this programming club called Crux, I
hmm,
think, and so it was like it's a very prestigious club to get into, and everyone was very hyped about it. Like,
hmm.
how do I get into Crux? And those questions were coming in all the time.
Right.
So we had this when I joined college. I think in within 10 days we had this freshers competitive coding contest,
Hmm,
and I just participated in it, and somehow I was able to rank third among the freshers. And
hmm,
because a lot of people hadn't done programming at that point of time, so I was feeling okay. I'm very good at program. I was feeling
hmm.
very swaggy at that point of time, but like a humbling experience was the Crux inductions. I was very confident that I'll get into Crux, and then
Right.
Crux inductions happened, and I did very bad. I think I was 25th among the people who participated.
Right.
So that was a very humbling experience, and that's when I seriously started doing CP. So that's kind of unrelated to the that does not answer your question, but that's one like yeah, I what I want to say is that most people that you will encounter who will end up being down the line 4 years, who will
Right.
end up being very good programmers, who will end up maybe going to the world finals and doing great in the world finals. Um, they start out very very basic. They're same as everyone else. They might have some like programmers from better colleges. They might have uh, that philosophy of improving
Mm,
consistently and not giving up after one contest
mm, mm.
instilled in them, because that's what I've observed from my fellow world
Right.
finalists, and they're amazing people.
Mm, mm,
Um, but they have that philosophy instead. But so you might think that they were very good at since the beginning. They had innate
mhm,
talent for it, but
mhm,
that's something that I observed. And coming to my particular, in the beginning, I get it. So whenever someone asks me how do I start CP, I don't
mm.
like mind those questions at all, because even though they're so common, because
Right.
it's
Right.
very confusing. Like,
Yeah.
where do I start? Which topic do I learn first?
Right.
There's
Right.
no set curriculum to getting better at CP.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my focus in general was that one resource, getting into technical stuff, one
Mm.
resource that I found very useful, in like one order that I found very was useful, was the course, what the course structure of CCDSA, CodeChef CCDSA. Um,
Mhm.
one senior like saw it and said, okay, this is a good order to follow things. Don't
Right.
necessarily, like, I didn't take the certification at all, but I followed that order, and that order is, I think it's pretty decent, because the dependencies on previous topics is pretty
Mm.
less if you follow that order. So I followed the order there. That was one thing that helped. But in general, it was mostly Googling. But after some time, you get used to the
Right.
ambiguity
Right.
of
Right.
learning in CP. So
Right.
that, yeah, you just do it. That's my only advice. Just start
That's the
doing it.
bottom line.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone who's watching heard Kunal talk about the problems that he had faced, but most importantly, how he, worked his way around those problems. And I hope that inspires you as it inspires us. I'm seeing some questions regarding ICPC, and that kind of falls in line with the next question that I have for you. Since you have had a rewarding ICPC experience, what would you like to talk highlight from that experience? Also, is the preparation method, is there any difference than your regular monthly challenge, like a cook-off or a long challenge?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite questions, particularly because
Right.
I think some people, I think a lot of the teams that are very promising but don't make it to the world finals,
Right.
somehow uh, they somehow make this mistake, that thinking that ICPC is just another contest,
Hmm.
like just another contest, you can prepare for it like you do for any other contest. The
Right.
most important thing in doing an ICPC is that you should emphasize practicing as a team a lot in
Hmm.
ICPC.
Right.
Um, so I think one of the reasons that we did decent in world finals was that in the last few months we were practicing a lot, completely just as a team. We weren't practicing much alone,
Right.
but we were devoting taking our team contests very seriously.
Hmm.
So you should, and so the way we practiced for ICPC was that, um, after you beyond some certain level, if you're going for the world finals or you're going
Right.
for regionals, it's okay. Three good programmers can get together in a
Hmm.
college, and they can get to the regionals, because the competition is basically within your college. You need to come
Hmm.
first in your college, basically, and you're through, right?
Hmm.
But if you're aiming for the world finals, it's very important that you start practicing as a team. Another thing that's important is you practice old ICPC regionals and your world finals as well. Those problems are very good. One thing to note in ICPC is that, um, the key difference that I've observed in regular Code versus Code Chef contests and
Right.
ICPC World Finals is that, the problems tend to be very, like, there's a heavy emphasis on mathematics in ICPC. So
Right.
it's always good to have one person who is good at math in your team. The second thing that I've observed is that problems can be either very implementation heavy, so you need to be judgmental of how
Right.
much time. a problem will take, even though it seems like a simple problem.
Yeah.
Even though it's like the solution is obvious, you need to schedule the problems as well
Right.
while, while you solve it. Third thing is you practice with a single system, because ICPC is a single system contest. The regionals and like beyond the online round, it's a
Mm.
single system contest. Allocate one person who will allocate, like, make it a rule that when you're practicing in ICPC, only one person codes at a time, because otherwise you won't get the, like, try to simulate the real environment as much as possible.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Uh, Experience helps a lot in ICPC, because the first time you reach the regionals, it's very, very intimidating.
Right.
Like the fear of, because you're surrounded by people who are just as smart as you.
Right.
Most people are just as smart as you, so it's very intimidating. And you're surrounded, and like it's an environment where every team is sitting in front, nearby every other team. So it's very daunting. But so experience helps in ICPC,
How
I
many
would
times
say.
have you been a part of the
I've
ICPC?
been to the regionals thrice and went to the World Finals this year. Um, so lastly, just practice World Finals problems. Um, go through previous World Finals problems and try to find out the topics that have come there,
Right. Right.
and assign people in your team who would take ownership of that topic and become very good at that topic. Like, you have
Right.
to you should have proper expertise in that topic.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
if a question comes, then people should expect you to solve it in your team. Your teammate, you should be the one, you should be reliable enough to solve that problem in the contest. Yeah, that should be the level of ownership that you should take.
Right.
But it's a long process. You can't become
Right.
a world finalist in 1 year. It's possible in 1 year, but it's very hard to do that in a very short amount of time. That's my advice for ICPC.
That's an excellently put, very detailed, very substantial advice from Kunal. I hope that answers your question, Bharat. Okay, I'll come to the question that I have been meaning to ask for a very long time now. It is regarding your current deployment. Uh, so, Kunal, how did Google happen, and how has been your experience with Google till now?
So in my fourth year, I wanted to interview for Google, and I just there was a senior who was working at there's a senior who was working at Google, and I thought, okay, fine, let's apply at Google. And I asked him for a referral. He knew me very,
Mm.
very well, so he was ready to refer me. And so the interviews were pretty straightforward at Google. They were just like any other programming interview
Mm.
that you would face at any other no, company. Um, One thing to note, but I think the emphasis at Google was that they want to see that you are able to come up with ideas on your own. You're able to they more interested in your analytical skills than the fact that you're able to completely solve the problem or you've memorized a solution.
Okay.
So they would, most probably, when you go to a Google interview, you will
Mm.
face questions that you haven't seen before. So it's good to you should optimize on, I would say you should optimize on learning to think better. That you should practice, but rather than going for some question banks or something, which like these set of questions have been asked in Google,
Mm.
somewhere you find it on LeetCode or something, because
Mm.
it's quite unlikely that will happen. Um, um, yeah, and so the interviews weren't very hard for me particularly, because I was very familiar with those types of problems. So with coding problems, I was very comfortable with that. So interviews weren't very hard for me.
So,
And
I'm just gonna stop you. When you say you were familiar with those kinds of problems, how do one?
competitive programming does help with,
Okay.
there's no denying that, but it's not the only way. But it
Yeah.
does help you with
Hmm.
coding interviews.
Right.
They do ask you data structures and algorithms. That's a
Hmm.
very industry-wide, uh, very popular topic to ask, because
Hmm.
I think why they do that is it's a very good way to judge if you're good at problem solving in general. It's a very
Hmm.
good way to judge that, because the fact is that when you work at a big company like Google or any company like that,
Hmm.
you generally won't be facing problems related to some project that you did in college, because
Right.
you most likely won't be allotted a project related to that.
Right.
That happens.
Yeah.
So it's not very uh, ideal to ask questions that are very specific, that can be memorized or stuff like that. So that's why they ask these types of problems. And
Hmm.
CP does help with that, because it's exactly that, except in a harder environment. You
Hmm.
are more constrained on time and you have to be faster with that.
Yeah.
That's all. So it's interviews are easier if you're good at CP. That
Hmm.
I would definitely say that. Yeah.
This was your answer. This was your take on how you managed to crack Google. But I have a question that has been sent to us from a CodeChef community member. His name, if I'm not saying it improperly, is Emmanuel Ibadini. Uh, Emmanuel wants to know how should he prepare for Google. Uh, how did he go from no programming knowledge to working for Google as an SDE?
Okay. First advice I would give to Emmanuel is that don't aim to be an SDE at Google.
Right.
You shouldn't like aim for a particular company is what I would say,
Hmm.
because it's just another corporation. You can, yeah, it sounds very good to work at Google, but it's
Right.
just another company. What you should aim for is getting good at programming in general. Just try, so. My personal philosophy was that when I started CP, I did not know like it helps with interviews. I never
Hmm.
cared for interviews until
Right.
third year of my college.
Hmm.
I was just interested in CP, and that's the only reason. And
Right.
that's a common theme that I've observed with other good programmers, that they didn't start CP for getting good at
Hmm.
for just getting some jobs.
Hmm.
The best people that I've known are in general people who did CP just because they are interested in it. They find it
Right.
fun.
Right.
So I wouldn't say do CP just because like try to get good at CP just because you want to get a job.
Hmm.
Try to get good at CP because it's fun. That's all.
Right. Right.
About my, like I said, my experience at Google was very natural because I was already in that environment for a very long time. I wasn't ever optimizing to get good at like get into Google. I just
Hmm.
was doing my own thing, and then it just happened as a side effect. Um, uh, for person who is in Triple E, CP particular, and I get this question as well. Like if I'm from a particular X branch, then
Hmm.
I do CP? It's totally fine. There's
Yeah.
no one stopping you, and
Okay.
the barrier to entry is not a lot either. You just need to know a programming language, and that's it.
Hmm.
You can do CP. Uh, so just start doing it, and if Google happens as a side effect, great. Otherwise, there are plenty great companies as well if you're
Absolutely.
interested
Yeah.
in software industry. Yeah.
Okay. There's a question from Shu Nikita, which I want to take. Shu wants to know what platforms do you recommend for practicing? Very straight up question.
Uh, okay. So yeah. So one platform that I used a lot in, and it came out pretty late in my college
Hmm.
days, was CP algorithms. Um, this is for learning. I'll structure this answer into both learning and practicing.
Okay.
For practicing, practice almost for practicing. I would suggest participate everywhere you can. Don't limit yourself to a platform. And I did that pretty much in my early days in college. I laced out a little earlier, but in the starting days, I would say go for
Hmm.
Code Forces, CodeChef, Top Coder. Um, uh, what else? There used to be one called CS Academy, Art Coder.
Right.
These each of these platforms have certain things that I've observed they're very good at. Code Forces is very good at short contests.
Right.
They have so that's why I participated a lot on Code Forces, and they're
Hmm.
very frequent. The contests on Code Forces are very frequent.
Right. Right.
CodeChef is good at long contests. I
Right.
like the long contests a lot. They instill this philosophy which I was talking about, trying to Google things and learning on your own. That is encouraged along through long contests. Um, the third top coder is a little advanced, and I think a lot of people don't participate on it anymore. Is that it teaches you how to, since so top coder has the system called, if you submit a solution, it won't tell you like it's correct or not, if you've passed any pretest or not. It could be completely wrong, but it will accept your solution. So,
Right.
and at the end of the contest, only you get to know if
Hmm.
it's correct or not. So top coder teaches you to make sure that your code is correct a lot.
Right.
So in a short amount of time, you need to test your, it teaches you to test your code very well.
Absolutely.
Um, and AdCoder has great problems. It's one of those rising platforms right now. It has very, very good problems for data
Hmm.
structures and algorithms. So yeah, I would recommend practice everywhere. You can don't focus on one particular website. Did and for resources, I think CP Algorithms is a very good website, cp-algorithms.com. It's a Russian website which has been translated into English. So
Hmm.
Russians are very good at CP in general. They consistently outperform every other country at ICPC, and so it's a very very well compiled resource. It also like explores. It suppose you pick up a topic like say by breadth first search. It explores a lot of variations of breadth first search as well. That's what I
Hmm.
liked about CP algorithms. Um, CodeChef long contests are a very good resource to learn new stuff as well, because it's more likely than not that you'll come across a problem that uses something that you have never used before.
Hmm.
And that has been my experience with long contests.
Right.
So that's one thing. For Code Forces blogs are written by community members. They're great. The community is great at Code Forces. So that's one other great platform, I would say. And top coder tutorials are a little old, but they are still very, very much relevant. I use that a lot as well. And HackerOath and HackerRank are pretty good as well. I've used that as well for quite a amount of time. Yeah.
Uh, uh, so, is there any study material that you recommend, or any books that you recommend regarding the
No
same?
books. I have never been a book kind of person.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, these resources, whatever I mentioned here, mentioned just now, it's mostly where I would look first before I would go on the internet and start googling things. This is usually the order that I would go through things. Yeah.
Uh, Continuing to issues question, there is another question that she had asked, which is kind of relevant to what we're talking about. She asked, what other subjects should one focus on apart from data structures and algorithms for
Uh,
interviews?
if you're looking for software roles,
Hmm.
um, I would say, and this is in general true for anyone who's studying, particularly computer science in college, and this is
Right.
something I realized pretty late in college, is that you should pay a lot of emphasis on your core disciplinary courses in college. They're
Hmm.
they're very important. Um, so object-oriented programming, operating systems,
Right.
um, networks, DBMS, this stuff is crucial to. So DSA, I don't think DSA is very much used in a real life job. It's the whatever skills you learn in CP, apart
Hmm.
from the ability to Google stuff and learn things on your own. I
Hmm.
don't think it translate. The technical knowledge does not translate a lot in your real job. What
Right.
translates is your basic fundamentals that you build through your CDCs, like
Hmm.
disciplinary courses like your OS, your operating system, your object-oriented programming networks.
Hmm.
This stuff gets used far more than I would say DSA in your real job. So
Right.
sometimes companies do ask this as well, and even if they don't ask it, you should learn this stuff because it will get used in your job a lot, and you're expected to know this stuff when you
All right.
start working. Yeah.
I hope that answers your question, Shiv. We'll move to the question again sent in by another community member named Jay. Jay wants to know what all should he do in his first year of college to get a good path. I think by path he means a career path.
I talk about myself, like what I did
Hmm.
my for CP particularly.
Right.
So what I did was I started doing CP. So in the early days, I was familiar with C++ from my school. So I didn't need to do that step. If that's something that you need to do, I can't help. I can't give a very good answer in that. But after that, I started practicing questions on just C++ in the beginning on HackerRank. So
Mm.
my senior advised me to start on HackerRank because it's not a competitive platform. Mainly, it's just for practice mostly,
Right.
and they have great problems for just practice, simple practice. So I started for the first just 1.5 months, I think, on
Mm.
HackerRank. I started with basic um, basic C++ and then started learning time complexity, space
Mm.
complexity analysis, and started doing basic ad hoc type of problems on there.
Mm.
And then I moved on to CodeChef and Codeforces. I started giving long contests every month,
Mm.
and along with that, I used to participate in Codeforces. One advice that I would give to people who are, and one thing that was instilled in me, and this was something that my senior advised me to do, and it's still something that I follow, is that whenever you solve a problem on whatever contest you're giving and you're not able you try to you stuck at a problem and you're not able to solve it within contest time, um do absolve it. Absolving is the way to improve in CP.
Mm.
So take at least, so if there were suppose there were suppose 7 problems in the contest and you were able to solve two and you were stuck at the third one,
Mm.
so you should try to solve the third and fourth problem after the contest.
Right.
Take any amount of time you have.
Mm-hmm.
I personally sat through problems for even 2 or 3 days, quite a
Yeah.
bit, even if they're not part of a contest. I've done that a lot. So try to think of a solution. If you're stuck for a very long amount of time, personally that time was for me about 2-3 hours,
Mm-hmm.
then you can go to the editorial and just reveal a bit of the solution till the point you get a new hint, and then don't go beyond that, and then go back to the problem again, and then approach it again, and then
Right.
try to think. So that builds some um, problem, that builds some thinking as well. And uh, after that, if once you're done with the problem and if it's a new topic somehow,
Mm-hmm.
so go read that topic. If it's a new topic, then go read that topic and then
Mm-hmm.
practice 4 or 5 problems on that particular topic itself. And uh, uh, don't ever try to practice simple problems. Simple
Mm-hmm.
problems are fine, it gives you like validation, but if you want to improve fast, then you need to solve harder problems. Just go like try to keep your uh, feeling of validation aside, and just try uh, just try to keep working on a harder problem, because if you solve a hard problem, the
Yeah.
satisfaction is much more than solving 5 easy problems every day. If you're able to solve a hard problem on over 3 days, so that's my general advice over 4 years as well. But especially this is important to develop in first year.
Excellent, Jay. I think you've got the push that you needed, Jay, to start your journey. Yeah, in your first year, follow the advice that Kunal had given you, and I'm sure you'll be a guest in WWC soon. I'll go to the next question. This is from Deependra. He's in BTech final year, tier 3 college. He mentions that he's in a tier 3 college, but he wants to apply for Google. And what topics should he choose? Before Kunal gives his answer, Deependra, I'll speak for Kunal. He'll probably going to tell you that do not aim for Google, aim for proficiency, and then
Yeah,
Google and other companies will happen. But the rest of your question will be answered, taken by Kunal.
yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks, Dipanjan. But uh ba- aim to take like clear your basics. Whatever, don't aim for very this is a very umbrella term. So
Yeah.
when you apply to Google, they will tell you what, like, Google wants you to succeed. That this is what I would one way I can put it, without
Mm.
getting too much into the interview process, is that Google wants you to succeed, so they will tell you what they will ask. So you shouldn't be worried about that if that's what
Right.
is. And Google gives you ample time to prepare. They gave me a lot of time to prepare. I think my interview process went on for 3 or 4 months. So
Mm.
time is not never gonna be an issue in Google.
Right.
But in general, just be good at DSA. Your regular topics, whatever, graphs, DP, your general ad hoc stuff,
Hmm.
trees. This stuff is very common. I think if you're good at this, you should be able to pick up any other topic that might come in the interview, but they will tell you. Don't worry
Hmm.
about that.
Right. All right. I hope that answers your question, Deependra. The next question, I chose this question especially because I was sure that this is going to come in the live comment section as well, and I get this question a lot. This is from Vansh, and Vansh is facing some issues regarding time management. Balancing his college exams, computer programming, and everything else. What would be your advice for him? How should he grow with so many things happening at the same time?
Uh, so I know it's a tough balance to strike, and
Yeah.
personally, I wasn't ever a very academic student in college.
Hmm.
Like once I discovered CP and then thought, okay, this is something that I want to do seriously. I think almost my entire time in college went to that.
Right.
The great thing that I don't know if you can relate to this, but in my college particularly, we had this thing of 0% attendance, and that I think is a great thing at BITS, where you can choose to not go classes at all. I wasn't ever an academic kid, so I just stayed at my room, did CP a lot because that's what I found interesting. I don't say I wouldn't say that don't go to classes because I'm saying so. Just find whatever you want to do more.
Right.
If it's academics that you're more interested in, do
Hmm.
that. But if it's CP you're interested in and academics don't hold that much value for you in your life,
Hmm.
do prioritize that. Think for yourself is what I would say, and like be confident in whatever decision you think take.
Right.
Um, but about balancing stuff, you can personally this could be a very personal thing,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
you can start studying for exams. In my opinion, just a week
Hmm.
before the exam, and you can score decent in
Right.
your college exams. I don't think college exams are very hard.
Hmm.
Could be just me, could be just my college, but yeah, that's my answer. I don't think it's a very good answer, but
No, no,
um,
I'm sure Vansh has picked up the points that he should from that answer.
yeah.
If you just 10 minutes left in this session, I'm going to open the gates for the live comment section. I'm going to pick up random questions from the comments. Kunal, if you want to pick any questions, you're free to. I'll just pick this question from Hardil, who is in the third year, who started CP in between somewhere in his third year. What would you suggest for him?
Nothing different. If the intention of the question is that I'm starting in third year, I
Hmm.
have less time to do CP.
Right, right, right.
Um, I gather your intention. Um, if you're aiming to get good at as any other person in CP, there's no shortcut. I would say if that's the intention, you just need to
Right.
practice a lot anyway. If you're aiming to the only way you can decrease the time is that you practice a lot and you practice
Hmm.
harder. And
Hmm.
being in third year, if you know programming language already, and
Right,
if you're a CS student, that's a plus.
right.
Then you are already in a good position to start CP in the way that you don't have to struggle with the early struggles that a first year has to struggle with, like how do I learn programming and
Right,
what is time complexity and stuff like that.
right.
You don't have to struggle with the basics. You have a lot of questions answered for yourself. If is CP the right thing to do right now? Those questions are so. Just do it, and just do it a lot. If time is a constraint, you can increase your effort to reduce the time that you need to get good at things. But I can't tell a shortcut to
Right.
get better and better at things in a small amount of time. What you
Absolutely.
can do is if you're aiming for a particular thing and you're aiming to get good at data structures algorithms, not just CP. Suppose you're preparing for interviews and you're just aiming to get good at data structures algorithms for just
Mm.
interviews. You can try to find out what are the general topics that are asked in interviews and
Mm-hmm.
practice problems that are related to uh, that interview scenario. Like CP can get very much more difficult than an interview problem.
Mm.
Interview problems in general, what I've observed is they don't get very. very deep into, like, they would ever you wouldn't ever face a persistent segment tree problem in an interview, is what I'm saying. So see what topics they ask and optimize on that rather than focusing on very hard topics and trying to do everything, is what I was
All
saying.
right. Next question coming up for Kunal. This is from G Divya. Divya wants to know how to find a mentor. Uh, she doesn't have one in college. What would you suggest to him? I think Kunal would make an amazing mentor if he has the time. Otherwise, anything you would suggest to her?
um Try to find people on code if you don't have any mentors in so first, like, decrease try to in your like in your own head, try to
Hmm.
decrease the importance of having a mentor, because like, try to be independent, as much independent as possible. If
Right.
you're stuck somewhere, approach someone on code forces, I think, or
Right.
CodeChef, or someone from the community,
Right.
and just like, people in general, what I've observed is the like, people who have been in CP for a long time, they're
Hmm.
happy to answer questions, provided that you have done some thinking on your own as well. Like,
Right.
if you ask generic questions that you get that you that everyone gets every single day, then
Hmm.
they probably won't be as interested to answer them. But if it shows that you have done some thinking on your own, and then you're asking something,
Right.
you've explored something on your own, then it's much more, then there's a much more much higher incentive for the person to answer. They're also passionate about answering those questions. So try to be independent by yourself,
Hmm.
and if there are any problems, just approach any. You can approach me as well on Code Forces, and if I whenever I find the time, I'm sure I'll try to answer you.
And not just her, there are a couple of people who have been asking for your tutorship as well. I can see it on the comment section already. But Divya also has a follow up question. She says if she is about to start CP, is there any particular programming language that she should pick or that you recommend?
So the like, technically, CP is independent of any programming language. You can do CP in any programming language, and I think all of the mature languages, C++, Java, Python, they all
Hmm.
have data structures for they all have data structures. All of anything that you'd probably need in a programming context, they all have those data structures implemented in them.
Hmm.
So so the first advice would be, whatever language you pick up, be very good at it. Try to find out uh, all possible libraries that could help you, and, like, have a curiosity to improve your language knowledge consistently, not just like for the baseline level. So
Right.
that helps a lot in CP. But if you don't know any language, and you're not comfortable with any language yet, so
Hmm.
I would advise picking up C++, because it has the highest support in the community right now. Most programmers,
Right.
CPers use C++. So, and it's a very widely used language in programming contests as well. I think almost 80% of the world finalists use C++.
Hmm.
Like, it's a random number, but I can safely say that it's true.
Yeah, that's my experience as well. Most of the CP players are using C++.
Yeah, because C++
Okay.
is very performant. C++
Right.
is very performant. So
Yeah.
it helps you in some borderline cases, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't rely on that. But it's still, if you don't have any, like, background in any language, and you're not already comfortable with any particular language,
Mhm.
just go for C++.
Absolutely. Okay, there's a question from Lakshman Raj. He's a non-CAC student, but he has some knowledge in DSA, has good knowledge in DSA. What other things should he focus on?
Um, uh, like like with respect to software roles, I am guessing, like, getting software roles.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, like I mentioned in the answer before, in interviews, what like, from an interview perspective, you can be asked anything related to your mostly anything related to your computer science
Hmm.
core disciplinary courses. So object oriented programming is one good thing that you need to know, because it helps you write good code, and it's quite often tested in interviews as well. They test you based on that knowledge, that how well do you do you design something, and how well do you implement something. So OOP is a good place to start, and
Yeah.
operating systems is good. It's very widely used as well.
Mm.
Networks, DBMS, all of this stuff is very common. Uh, Apart from CP, if apart from DSA, if you have the time, you
Right.
can do some projects to get some hands-on experience with all of these basic theoretical concepts. Uh,
Hmm.
you put it out into the real world. So that's something that you can do. But if you have the time only, just for from interview perspectives,
Right.
there's no written rule, I would say, for like this. If you do this, then all companies will be into you. That never
Mm.
happens.
Mm.
But uh, what you can do is, if you're interested in some particular companies, you can find out what they do and optimize on that. But in general, just be a good programmer. That's what I would say. Just do stuff hands on, and then you will learn a lot. That's it.
All right. I'll
Yeah.
I'll end this session with a question from Madhav Kotecha. He has asked a question I'm sure a lot of people have faced. I think you might have faced it in your CPDs as well. Madhav asks, what do you do when in a situation where you're stuck in the middle of a competition and you're basically puzzled and don't know what to do and time is running? What's
Yeah.
your advice?
Um. Okay. So, like, personally, so if it's a contest where every problem has different scoring,
Hmm.
okay, if it's a contest where every problem does have the same score,
Hmm.
then what you should do is that you should just go through every other, like, in the beginning of the contest itself, try to my general strategy is to, okay, so my general strategy to contest is that I would first go through all the problems, and
Yeah.
if I find some very easy problem, I would try to solve those first. So get the easy problems out of the way at the
Hmm.
start of the contest. Then, and so this strategy is useful in ICPC in general as well, that first go for the easy problems, because every
Hmm.
single problem has the same score.
Yeah.
So go for easy problems, try to find the easy problems, try to find shorter statements as
Hmm.
well, because longer statements, obviously, even if they're easy, they take a lot of time in just
Right.
understanding the problem.
Hmm.
um, then go for problems that you see that seem from the topic that you from a topic that you know of already, that you're already good at.
Hmm.
So this is my general strategy, and then go for the harder ones. You There's no set rule to getting around being stuck. Um, if you're stuck at a problem, what I would advise is fix mentally some time that you would see this problem, and if you're not able to even budge anywhere from that, so just move on to the next problem and uh, think about it. If you're able to solve it, it happens a lot, and it has happened with me a lot as well, that I'm stuck on a problem, and the next problem was, even though it has lesser number of solves, it seemed more obvious to me compared to this one. It happens a lot, all the time. So fix some amount of time that you take when you're stuck, and then just move on to the next one. And you can always come back if you're stuck on that one as well. But yeah,
All right.
it just optimize on whatever you're better at. Yeah.
Thank you so much for those all those elaborate answers, Kunal. Me and on behalf of my entire team, Vinita, Ganga, Shaili, Harish, Flavian, everyone who has been working on Weekends with Champions, we want to thank you and everyone else who has joined us for this amazing session. We had a feeling that it's going to be amazing, and it was nothing short of it.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, Kunal, if there is any piece of advice that you want to leave for everyone who is watching, please.
Um, like I said before, I from the general and I expected this a lot. Try to just if for competitive programming, try to find the joy of solving problems. The adrenaline of solving problems
Hmm.
is more important rather than the rather than the benefits you can get from solving. If you focus on that, if you focus just on improving and just enjoying it a lot, I think
Hmm.
those things come as a side effect,
Right.
because you put more effort into enjoying rather than just for a particular goal.
Mhm.
You can slack. It's easier to slack off in that way. So try to have fun while doing problems. Uh, yeah, that's my advice.
Absolutely, that's perfect advice. Thank you, Kunal. We hope to connect soon. We should do this once again. I hope you all the best for your near
Thank you.
and far future. We'll see you soon again. Thank you so much for joining. Bye bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye.